Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is John J Gaming on the mic here, coming with another iteration of my 2023 NFL mock draft. This is now going to be version number 4, and I know I recently released version number 3 not too long ago to kind of culminate how I was feeling after the NFL Combine, as well as the news of Derek Carr going to the New Orleans Saints. With that being said, though, we had a big trade that went down. It did come out a couple of days ago. Today is March 12th that I am recording this. And this is after the Carolina Panthers traded up for the number 1 overall selection that the Chicago Bears originally had. Now, the Chicago Bears, they got quite a bit out of that number 1 overall selection. They got the number 9 selection in the first round, the number 61st overall pick, which is a late second round selection. They also got a couple of other future draft selections in 24 and 25. And they also got DJ Moore, someone who can very well be that number 1 wide receiver that Justin Fields is going to love. And what you're going to see here in version number 4, because of that trade, that's going to have some implications not only in that top 10, but specifically what you could possibly see throughout the rest of this NFL draft. So you're going to want to buckle up. I definitely have some thoughts here for version number 4. If you're excited, make sure you go ahead, smack that like button. Subscribe if not only do you enjoy my NFL draft analysis, but also sports gaming content as well, mainly in that college football sphere. If that sounds like something that you're interested in, this is certainly the channel for you. Also, let me know down in the comment section what you guys think about what I'm laying down. Are you smelling what I'm stepping in? And just like in previous mock drafts, we are only going to do 1 round because that is all my wife says that I can handle. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump right into this thing. So the Carolina Panthers, they now have the first overall selection. Now here in the first overall, we've treated the past mock drafts as a thought experiment with what happens if the Chicago Bears did not trade out that number 1 selection. But now that's no longer the case. The Carolina Panthers are picking at number 1. You would think if you go up to the number 1 pick, you're going after a quarterback. So that's what I'm looking at right now. However, this is where I'm going to start differentiating from my previous mock draft versions. In versions 1 through 3, I've always had Bryce Young going off the board first. That's always been my belief. However, unlike the Chicago Bears, unlike the Houston Texans, the Carolina Panthers actually have a solid offensive line. An offensive line that I think is a little bit underrated given the problems that they've had at skill position this year, right? So that being said, taking into account that their offensive line is actually a solid offensive line, I'm going to be looking at a different quarterback. And I'm going in this different direction because, yeah, maybe even Bryce Young might have a little bit more upside than this quarterback. But given what the Carolina Panthers are trying to do, they have a solid offensive line. So having that athletic quarterback that's known to extend plays is not that as important as maybe if you're the Houston Texans, Indianapolis Colts, or the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm going to be looking at CJ Stroud. And the reason I'm going to go CJ Stroud is because I'm looking for a quarterback that is a better passer. And I've always said that the difference between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud is not as big as what people think. So I think there's a real possibility that CJ Stroud goes number 1 overall to the Carolina Panthers, and I think Carolina fans are really going to fall in love with him. So with that being said, for number 2, we don't see any change from versions 1 through 3. Houston Texans, they obviously still need their quarterback of the future, and I still think they grabbed themselves Bryce Young. So first 2 picks are going to be quarterbacks, one from Alabama, one from Ohio State, before we get to the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals, they're now selecting with the 3rd overall selection. They are not in need of a quarterback because they do have Kyler Murray. But what this does, now that they don't have what they had going on in the picks above them, they have their pick between Jalen Carter and Will Anderson Jr. And I think this is really important because one thing that the Arizona Cardinals really do need is they need a pass rush. So I do think they go with Will Anderson Jr., someone who not only is a blue chip defensive prospect in my opinion, but does not have the same off-the-field concerns that Jalen Carter currently has. And because of that, I'm going to go with Will Anderson Jr. with the number 3 overall pick. So 2 Alabama guys selected in a row. But then we get to the Indianapolis Colts. Previously, I would have CJ Stroud here at number 4, but he has already been taken. I still think that they go with a quarterback because they eventually need to break the wheel. However, it's going to take a little bit longer to break that wheel because both quarterbacks, Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, I do not believe are going to be ready to go and start day number 1 in the NFL. They'll need a little bit of seasoning. So the Indianapolis Colts, I imagine they'll go after a veteran free agent, have them be a bridge guy, maybe a Jacoby Brissett, see if he wants to come back to Indy, somebody like that. But you got to go somebody with the insane upside. And you want to talk about a guy, runs a 4.40, he's insanely athletic, he's got a cannon of an arm. He's just not ready to be an NFL quarterback just yet. But I love his upside, and because of that, I see him as my quarterback 3. I'm going with Anthony Richardson to the Indianapolis Colts. Now at number 5 is the Seattle Seahawks on deck, and for the Seattle Seahawks, they are in need of some defensive linemen. Got to get some defensive guys. And Jalen Carter, those off-the-field issues that he's currently having is certainly an issue with the reckless driving and the racing charges. Neither of them do carry a jail sentence that would jeopardize his NFL career in the long term, but definitely some bad decisions going to cost him some money for sure. And that's why Jalen Carter has fallen out of possibly being the number 1 pick if the Bears actually did not trade said number 1 pick. But Jalen Carter, I think, makes a lot of sense for the Seattle Seahawks, though, because Pete Carroll, what he has going on there, they have an established culture. You need an established culture right now for a guy like Jalen Carter to really learn how to be a pro's pro off the field. So I think Jalen Carter makes a lot of sense, and honestly, dude has a ton of talent too. Now the Detroit Lions are up next at number 6, and this is actually the LA Rams' original first-round pick. This is back for when they traded away Matthew Stafford to the LA Rams for Jared Goff. So they got this number 6 overall pick. They definitely need some help on the defensive side of the ball, and I think they go ahead and continue to address that defensive side of the football, going with Devin Witherspoon, the quarterback out of Illinois. Continue to build that defense because that offense is surely exciting, and if that offense continues that exciting, teams are going to be forced to throw the football, and when that happens, it's good to have some corners that can cover, and Devin Witherspoon definitely fits that bill. But with that, the Las Vegas Raiders are on the board at number 7. I'm going to go with somebody that is the last quarterback that is really a solidified first-round pick. Going to go with Will Levis, who maybe isn't someone that I'm not as excited about, given what happened at the NFL Combine. This is still somebody that has a cannon of an arm. He does have that ability. Still needs some seasoning, though. Definitely still needs some seasoning. I think Will Levis at number 7 makes a lot of sense, because I do think the Raiders fall in love with the traits that he brings to the table, even though the productivity isn't necessarily there. At number 8, though, the Atlanta Falcons are on deck, and even though it does mention that they need a quarterback, I don't think that they try to pursue a quarterback, right? I think that coaching staff really does believe in Desmond Ridder, and that's why they have not really pursued a veteran quarterback, at least just yet, after releasing Marcus Mariota. I think it's Ridder's season, and the thing with Ridder is if he sucks and the team's drafting in the top 5, you can go ahead and get yourself a Caleb Williams or maybe even a Drake May if he comes out next year for the next NFL draft. Those are 2 very good prospects that just come off the top of my head. But in the interim, I do think that they use this as an opportunity to improve their defense. They definitely need some edge rushers. And Tyree Wilson has really impressed in the NFL draft process. I liked his ability to get after the quarterback. Really somebody that I think the Falcons would fall in love with. So I have Tyree Wilson going number 8. So now we're at number 9. This is the Chicago Bears selection, and this is where the Carolina Panthers traded up from So what do the Chicago Bears do? They need just about everything. They need basically everything except a quarterback and maybe running back. Maybe running back. Depends on what happens with what they do with the running backs that are currently on their roster. You do have Justin Fields, though, and I'm looking at Quentin Johnson here. Quentin Johnson, not a perfect prospect, but somebody that was a big-time receiver, has the productivity to back it up, and he put up some huge stats in the college football playoff. That alone, I think, puts him at wide receiver 1 discussion. Jackson Smith-Njigba, you can go that way too. Christian Gonzalez makes a lot of sense too. Really, all of these guys make a lot of sense, but why not get yourself another guy for Justin Fields to throw the football to? Even though you got DJ Moore, Quentin Johnson as a wide receiver too sounds really good on paper. And, I think that provides an exciting offense to watch all of a sudden. So Quentin Johnson to the Chicago Bears makes a lot of sense. Meanwhile, for the Philadelphia Eagles, this is their number 10 selection, and this is the New Orleans first-round selection, which I'm sure they could really use right now. But looking at the Philadelphia Eagles, they need interior offensive linemen, and Peter Skoronski could fill that bill for sure. That could be an option. But how about you get yourself a third wide receiver? We've seen this debate before for the 2021 but not the 2021, the 2021 draft, where there was a lot of discussion between Jamar Chase and getting an offensive lineman, Penei Sewell, because the Bengals really needed offensive linemen at the time. That being said, they went with wide receiver, and the rest is history. They have one of the best free-headed monsters at the wide receiver position in T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, as well as Tyler Boyd, too. The Eagles are one step away from having that with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. Why not get yourself that slot guy that can really play some great ball? Jackson Smith-Njigba can certainly be that guy. Even though he may not be the fastest, probably someone that runs like a 4.5 in the 40, so not the most athletic. He knows how to get open, and he knows how to get yards after the catch too, and I think that's really important in today's NFL. But for number 11 is the Tennessee Titans, and they were going to go wide receiver, but Quentin Johnson is gone. Jackson Smith-Njigba is also gone as well. They do still need an offensive lineman, particularly at tackle. And I was talking a lot about Peter Skoronski. I think the Tennessee Titans, I think that would be great for whoever is playing quarterback, whether that's Ryan Tannehill, or do they pass the keys off to Malik Lewis, or is there somebody not on the roster that will be playing quarterback for the Tennessee Titans next year? I don't know, but either way, got to get yourself a blindside tackle. I think Peter Skoronski can be that guy, and you can slide him around anywhere that you want, so I think that's a really big deal as well. Houston Texans are picking at number 12. This is their second first-round pick. I do see this as an opportunity to grab Kalijah Kancey, very good defensive lineman at Pitt, and it's time to reinforce that defensive front. Kalijah Kancey, I believe, is your guy because of that. However, for number 13, things do get pretty interesting. I think this is possibly a trade opportunity. Now, the Jets are in discussion with the Green Bay Packers, possibly on the availability of Aaron Rodgers. And that has not happened as of the recording of this video. If it does, I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked. So it's very much possible that the Jets do not have their first round pick when this comes around. But should they do, I'm looking at their options, and it really doesn't fit any of their needs. They don't need defensive guys, which is really what's available right here, between Christian Gonzalez, Brian Branch, Lucas Van Ness, Joey Porter, those types of guys. So I do think this is a trading opportunity for the New York Jets, and no way I'm looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers trying to trade up, because they certainly could use some defensive guys. I think they go ahead, they throw in a 4th round pick as well to move up 4 spots, give the Jets some additional draft capital to work with, and then go with somebody that can definitely help cover that Migos offense that's in the Cincinnati Bengals. Get yourself a lengthy corner in Christian Gonzalez. I think that makes a lot of sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, that being said, at number 14, I have the New England Patriots, staying with what I've got them selecting in my version 3, going with Lucas Van Ness. I don't really think they need a quarterback. I think Mac Jones just has not gotten the help that he's needed. I'm hoping that's addressed in free agency by New England Patriots. They also could use a tackle here, so Paris Johnson Jr. is something that they think about, but I think they can go with somebody that is going to help them on the defensive side of the ball. Lucas Van Ness, he's a freak athlete. Got a little bit lost from the Nolan Smith talk. A great combine himself. But I think Lucas Van Ness at number 14 makes a lot of sense for the Patriots. However, for number 15, we do have the Green Bay Packers. And whoever is playing quarterback for the Green Bay Packers could be looking more likely that Jordan Love finally takes over. He's a former first-round pick himself. He's going to need some weapons. I like Romeo Doubs. I like Christian Watson. I don't love those guys. So they'll need a wide receiver 1 eventually. They also could use a tight end because Robert Tonyan, he's not that guy. He is not a tight end 1 in the NFL. I'm sorry. I just do not see him in that way. Why not get yourself a guy that has productivity and tests well at the combine? Dalton Kincaid. Because if Jordan Love does take over, young quarterbacks, they love that safety blanket. Dalton Kincaid can certainly be that. He goes to the Green Bay Packers. Now, at number 16, I do have the Washington Commanders drafting in this particular spot. And Washington's in a spot right now. They could grab Paris Johnson Jr., but the Commanders don't need tackles, right? They need interior offensive linemen. They need guards and centers. That's what they're looking for, right? So you're not asking Paris Johnson Jr. to be an interior offensive lineman. He's 100% a tackle, and specifically a left tackle, right? That's important. They also need a quarterback, unless they really believe in Sam Howell. If they do, they're going to be tanking this year. That's just how I feel about how things are. And there's really no first-round caliber linebackers. So I'm going to look at the Washington Commanders to go ahead, make some trades, see what's available out there. Baltimore Ravens, could that be an option? I think it really could be. And I think the Baltimore Ravens do make that move. They go ahead and trade their first and third round pick to the Washington Commanders in order to move up 6 selections. And Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to give the same reasoning that I gave for the Pittsburgh Steelers pick. You got to find a way to cover Migos. And I really don't think they're going to invest in a receiver necessarily in the first round, since those receivers that they want might not be there at 22, and 16 is too much of a jump. So I'm going with Joey Porter Jr., very good corner out of Penn State. I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, for the New York Jets at 17, well, the Jets get the guy that they really want, Paris Johnson Jr. Regardless of who's playing quarterback for the Jets, having that blindside tackle is going to guard you. That's always important. And Paris Johnson Jr., one of the best offensive linemen on one of the best offensive line units in college football last season. Paris Johnson Jr. at 17. That would be a steal for the New York Jets. So they trade down and get a guy that they ultimately want anyways. So Paris Johnson Jr. from Ohio State goes to the Jets. However, for the Detroit Lions, they are up next on the board. They are selecting at number 18. And the Lions, this is their second first-round pick. They got, not Devin Witherspoon. They did get Devin Witherspoon. I'm tripping. My bad, guys. But still got to get some interior defensive linemen. I do love what they have building on that defensive front with Aiden Hutchinson. But why don't you keep building on that? Grab yourself some Brian Breezy. Continue to reinforce that defensive line. I think that makes a lot of sense for the Detroit Lions. However, for number 19, this is a very interesting spot for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I do see them possibly trading down here at this spot. As you can see, trading up was not very successful. Do the Cowboys try to go up to number 19? Is that an option? I think it is. I think the Dallas Cowboys got to get yourself a receiver aside from CeeDee Lamb. I really think that they could use that second big-time wide receiver. And been seeing some buzz with this particular wide receiver. Could be a little bit of a stretch, but you got to get that receiver next to CeeDee Lamb. Help out Dak Prescott a little bit more. And I think with the 19th selection, the Cowboys are going to select Zay Flowers. So at number 20 is the Seattle's own first-round pick, and the Seattle Seahawks. They could use some defensive linemen themselves still. They could also get interior offensive linemen as well, but not really any first caliber, but maybe Osiris Torres. But I think they fall in love with Noah Smith here. Noah Smith, extremely athletic, 4.39 in a 40-yard dash. That is a scary proposition. Got to get after some of those mobile quarterbacks, particularly, you got Trey Lance to worry about. You have Jalen Hurts to worry about as well. Kyler Murray is also very mobile, so get yourself some guys that can track down a mobile quarterback, and Nolan Smith makes a lot of sense there because of that. Meanwhile, for 21, I have the LA Chargers. They could use a wide receiver, but I think it's just the wide receivers just need to be healthy. I think that Keenan Allen's a very good wide receiver. He's a 1, in my opinion. Mike Williams is a very good deep threat as well for Justin Herbert. Why don't you get yourself some corners? And Deonte Banks being available at 21 makes a lot of sense. Get yourself Deonte Banks. And for the Washington Commanders, this is where they actually traded from. I think they go best player available. I had him going to the Washington Commanders in version number 3. Brian Branch is somebody. And someone told me that they need corners, but it's a top 5 pass defense. So I don't know why you would be worried about getting a corner specifically. Yeah, could they address other positions? Sure, that's definitely possible. But sometimes the best idea is get the best player available and then work it out later. So I'm going to go with Brian Branch with number 22. At number 23 could be another trade proposition for the Minnesota Vikings, as now that Deonte Banks is no longer available, where do they go? They mainly need defensive guys besides Miles Mercies, but he's an edge guy, and they need interior defensive linemen specifically. So I think this is an opportunity to see what's available. Could they trade up or trade down? Maybe not with the Bills. Kansas City Chiefs feels like a more realistic option for me. Get themselves a defensive lineman that they really do want. So I think the Chiefs use their first round pick as well as the 4th round pick that they got from the Miami Dolphins, trade up to number 23, and that trade does get accepted. You love to see it. And get themselves best player available and also fills the need as well. Myles Murphy, get yourself another edge guy. Having pass rush, you can never have too many pass rushers. I feel like that makes a lot of sense, especially if you're worried about the Cincinnati Bengals. Got to make sure that Joe Burrow does not have enough time, because if he does, he will cook you. That's straight up. He will cook you, right? So now 24 comes up. This is the Jacksonville Jaguars selection. And again, I see some more trading opportunities here. They could go best player available. Not necessarily the Minnesota Vikings. So the Minnesota Vikings, I've already had them trading down. They wouldn't just trade back up. That doesn't make sense. So Jaguars, I see them going best player available. Get yourself some Anton Harrison in your life. At number 25, well, they definitely need some weapons. And I think at number 25, got yourself a receiver that can actually be a 1. Jordan Addison did not have the best combine, but he has production at 2 different places now. Got it at Pitt, and he's got it at USC as well. He was why he helped Caleb Williams win the Heisman Trophy, having those elite weapons. So Jordan Addison makes sense there at number 25. At number 26, this is where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traded down, and at this point, get yourself that second best tight end in the class, Michael Mayer. Be a very good weapon for whoever does play for the Bucs in 2023, 2024 season. Whether that's Kyle Trask or more likely somebody else, Michael Mayer can be that weapon. For the Buffalo Bills, I think this is the time that they make a luxury selection. They need offensive linemen, particularly interior guys. But Broderick Jones, we're going to look at Broderick Jones. He's a tackle. You're not moving him inside. DeJuan Jones, particularly, he's also a tackle. He is built literally to play tackle in the NFL. That being said, they could use a running back. Devin Singletary is a free agent right now. Get yourself a clear running back so that Josh Allen can put a little bit less load on himself in the running game. So Bijan Robinson to the Buffalo Bills, I think that's a really awesome selection. And for the Cincinnati Bengals, because they still need a tackle, at least somebody to either compete with Jonah Williams over on the left tackle side, or someone that can play right tackle. Should Will Collins get hurt, he might not be ready for the upcoming NFL season. I think Broderick Jones has a lot of upside here for number 28, so I see that going for the Cincinnati Bengals. However, for the New Orleans Saints, it still says that they need a quarterback. And I do think that they need a quarterback. Just no longer in the first round, because they did get Derek Carr. You don't get Derek Carr and then spend a first-round pick on a quarterback. That doesn't make sense, at least in my opinion. But NFL GMs have done dumber things before, right? Like, I'm just a commentator. I'm not sitting in a GM desk. I don't know what they're thinking, but I do think that they use this as an opportunity to address different needs on the defensive side of football. And Mozzie Smith, the interior defensive lineman at Michigan, makes a lot of sense because of that. If they really want to go quarterback, maybe they can look in day 2, day 3, look at Tanner McKee, look at a, oh gosh, what's that quarterback's name? Hendon Hooker, that's who I'm thinking of. Maybe get somebody like that if you're really pressed. But yeah, that's what I have going for the New Orleans Saints. Down to the last couple of picks, so we got the Philadelphia Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings, who trade down for number 31. For the Philadelphia Eagles, they used their last first-round pick to get a wide receiver, but couldn't they go another wide receiver? Is this a Josh Downs pick, possibly? Just get even more weapons? But Josh Downs will be like 4 at best in his rookie season, so I don't know what you do with that. Maybe this is a spot where they go best player available at this point. I think Will McDonald, he's just a freak of nature. And again, like I mentioned before, back with the Myles Murphy pick that the Kansas City Chiefs made, you can never have too many pass rushers. So Will McDonald going to Philadelphia Eagles could make sense. Build that defensive line. And now the last first-round pick is the Minnesota Vikings at number 31. They need a defensive interior guy. That's not really available. Couldn't they go corner? Is this an Emmanuel Forbes pick? Someone that kind of flown under the radar, but Emmanuel Forbes, he's a good player. I really like Emmanuel Forbes. He's a versatile corner, can play zone, can play man. Does need to work on putting some more muscle, putting on a little bit more weight, because he is a little bit on the light side, but that doesn't change the fact that Emmanuel Forbes led the NCAA. I believe it was in either interceptions or pick 6. So this is an electric football player, and one that's really hard to ignore. So I think the Minnesota Vikings, get yourself that corner that can make electric plays, get him in that NFL weight room regiment, put that weight on him. I think he'd be a very good player in the NFL. So with the final first-round pick, I am going to roll with Emmanuel Forbes from Mississippi State going to the Minnesota Vikings. So guys, that is going to wrap up my version number 4. Let me know in the comments section, though, what you guys think. Do you agree with what I'm putting down here for version number 4? Or are you a little bit disappointed? Or do you even disagree with me? Let me know in the comments section with how you guys feel about my draft. And if you enjoyed my version 4, do me a favor and smack this like button as we can get this out to more folks that are interested in the NFL draft process like you guys are. And not only that, if you enjoyed the NFL draft analysis, but you also happen to enjoy college football gaming too, this is the channel for you. And I highly recommend you subscribing if you fall under this category as well. And you made it to the end of this video too. So that being said, this is John J Gaming on the mic signing off. Hoping you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.